Hey guys, what's going on? Amir here from Adonis Athletics. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go through, this will be the first of a series of kind of like instructionals of like very basic pointers on how to carry out certain exercises, the main exercises. This is targeted towards, for those of you out there who are just getting into training, who are at the early stages of your training. This is not for the, the high, intermediate, or like advanced lifters. This is for those of you who are recreational trainers starting to get into serious training. This is for those coaches out there, those PTs out there who want to be able to teach the basics to anybody out there that can then get them to safely start squatting so that they can just get their program going and start training. And then from there on, over the course of time, as with anything else, you start to fine-tune things and move things around and get that person better and better and more fine-tuned to executing that exercise. So today's one, we're going to talk about the squat, one of the big threes in powerlifting, obviously. So let's say we get somebody coming through the doors here at Adonis Athletics, and they say, "Look, I know some lifting, but I want to get into it a little bit more seriously. I want you to teach me how to squat." Okay. This is some of the things that we look at. This is some of the ways we approach how to teach somebody how to squat. Okay. Firstly, we want to have a look at that person and see, okay, how much experience these people have in squatting. Usually, we like to get everybody to tend towards a high bar squat. Okay, high bar is excellent at building a foundation. It's excellent at building strength to then be able to transfer into low bar. What's more, it stresses much of the other parts of the body much less. So the shoulders don't get hammered as much, the elbows don't get hammered as much, the wrist doesn't get hammered as much with a high bar squat. With that being said, some people just can't do it because of the way they're built. They just find it very awkward and things like that, okay? But we'll go through both of them very briefly. But generally, we tend towards high bar, at least at the start, to get people going, get them stronger. And then when it comes close to competition, or when we know that they have a general idea, a good understanding, a solid base, foundation of strength, then we move them towards a low bar. So, follow me here, let's have a look at how we set things up. So with high bar or low bar, regardless, the bar setup should be at about mid to high chest level. If you go on high bar, a little bit higher on the chest, so about there for me. If I was to be doing low bar, I would want it maybe one notch lower, so maybe about there, right? In regards to high bar, so what defines a high bar? Come around here and have a look at my back so the good people can see. For us, the way we define it is a low bar is usually tends to sit on the spine of the scapula. So you have a bone back here. If it's sitting on that bone, then we call that a low bar. Anything on that or below is called a low bar. So this is a low bar, where basically it's shelved on the posterior delt muscles. When you flex the upper back, this creates a little bit of a shelf there, right? High bar is generally anything higher than that, but usually it sits on the meat of the traps, and you're kind of like that. Versus a low bar, which is at the highest point there. So that's about a low bar. This is what we like to work with on a high bar here. So as you can see, for my high bar, I'm wearing shoes. We recommend that people wear shoes with high bars because with a high bar, biomechanically, the way it's supposed to be done, it's supposed to target the quads more. It's obviously the go-to lift, the go-to positioning for Olympic weightlifters. And weightlifting, because it transfers so much better in regards to the body's positioning. You want a really upright torso as you do the high bar squat. You want to minimize any forward lean whatsoever with the body, whereas the low bar it's the opposite. You tend to get a lot of forward lean with the low bar because of the way the bar is positioned and the way the bar has to align with the feet as you're going up and down. So with the high bar, very important to keep the chest up, keep maintain this position at all times. And similarly, we like to teach people to look forward, never look down. I know a lot of powerlifters and a lot of people getting into powerlifting have been taught to or like to look a little bit forward. That's generally with the low bar. Even with the low bar, we don't really teach that. We don't like that for one simple reason. And that is because it tends to teach bad habits early on if you teach it to a beginner. That's just my opinion. That's just how we do it here. You may do it a different way yourselves, and that's fine. If it works for you, it works for you. Keep doing it. But definitely with the high bar, we always like to get people to have their chin up and look for something that they can focus on at eye level or above, preferably above. So that they can maintain that and be able to maintain that positioning on the way down and up as they're doing the squat. So this is what high bar positioning is supposed to look like on the way up and down. So chest up, elbows you want to maintain them as far from the bar as possible, and as you descend, you want to keep an upright torso as much as possible and minimize any forward lean or the hips shooting back, anything like that, because the more the hip shoots back, the more you lean forward, because this bar is so much higher on the back, it will magnify its effect and the pressure that it causes on the lower back. You will almost certainly lose it forward. So you want to be completely upright, down and up. Your weight should be distributed evenly across all the bottom of your foot. You don't want to have too much pressure or too much forward lean on your toes, and you don't want to be on your heels too much either. Just balance on the middle of your foot. Another important factor is bracing. So as you are getting ready to descend, take a big breath in here. Hold up. That's when you breathe out. An important thing with bracing is a lot of people think that it's just a matter of filling up the lungs with air. Sure, some air is going to go into your lungs. It's impossible to breathe in without the lungs expanding. But what you have to picture is all this wall around your body, around your torso. You want to expand it and pressurize it. So you're letting air in and then holding it. You're compressing. You got to imagine yourself like a piston almost, or as Dr. Quinn from JTS and Clinical Athlete, who I did a podcast with recently, alluded to, was a Coke can. So imagine if you have a Coke can and you're pressurizing that Coke can, it will press out against the walls of the Coke can. And that's what proper bracing is all about. So with high bar, with low bar, with deadlifts, with almost anything that you do where you're required to transfer strength from the lower body to the upper body or the upper body to the lower body, it is an excellent idea to be able to brace properly and learn to breathe properly. But that's maybe for another episode in itself. Just to recap on the high bar, some of the basic things that we look to cue a person that just walks through the door is making sure the elbows are under the bar, making sure that the chest is up, never down on the way, whether they're going down or coming up, always like this. Chin at least parallel to the ground with a focus on some point in front of them, and brace tight, hold, down, upright as possible with minimal lean, and back up. In terms of depth, we want to always teach same as IPF depth rules. So the crease of the hip, at least at the very minimum, the crease of the hip below the top of the kneecap. So for me, this would be minimum depth. Anything higher than that is not quite ideal. But the lower that they can get without any breakdown in technique, without it making it dangerous, the better it is. So that's in terms of the high bar squat. In terms of the low bar squat, nothing really changes. Obviously the bar position is lower on the back. Here the athlete has a little bit of a leeway to look down if they wish, if that's what they feel more comfortable with, but still we like to teach them to still look forward, especially in the early days, and that cues them to keep the chest up. Or at least we've found that it cues them better to keep the chest up than looking down. So that's the way we do it. That's the reason that we do it. Same thing with the bracing. Brace tight, hold it, go down, and also the same thing with the elbows. As they are going down, the upper back obviously stays tight, but we like to make sure that their elbows stay under the bar and they push back as they come up. So we never want this to happen, okay? Although it does tend to happen much easier, like a good morning squat, where this kind of happens. It does happen much easier with a low bar squat than it does with a high bar squat, because of maybe some people's over-reliance on the posterior chain. In that case, they need to work on maybe developing the quads a little bit more. Again, going back to high bar squats, going back to front squats, and that's one of the reasons why I said, for majority of the time, we like to get people to start and get very good at high bar squats before they transfer over to low bar squats down the track. So you may see like you know, good mornings and things like that happening. To combat that, one of the things again is we continuously cue for them to imagine they have eyes on their chest, and whilst they're bracing, as they're coming up, to look up with these eyes, and at the same time push the elbows under the bar and push back onto the bar. So then that pushes the bar back into a proper line of movement, and also helps to push the hips forward under the bar. Makes it a little bit easier for them to come back up. What else? We've got, oh, also with shoes, with low bar, not everybody can use or needs shoes with low bar. Me personally, after a certain weight, I fall forward with shoes because of the way I low bar squat. Low bar squatting is my preferred source of squatting in competitions, and I squat in flats always in competition. I feel much better squatting in flats. So you might want to experiment of what you feel best with a low bar squat, whether you want to go with shoes, like Olympic shoes, weightlifting shoes, or flats. More often than not, we find that flats is the preferred source, or preferred shoe or footwear for people who want to do low bar. What else we got? Oh, the use of belts. A lot of people ask us, should we use belts? Should we not use belts? And this is always my answer. I think powerlifting belts are overused in this day and age. Back many years ago, they weren't really in existence. They weren't really popular, and so you know, we used to just use like old shitty belts like this. Come on, look. We used to just use belts like that. That was all that we knew. And, you know, even in some cases, exactly like that, just torn and mangled. But that's all we had. That's all I used to use, because that's all I knew about, right? Through the use of a belt like this, it meant that I had to actually, subconsciously at the time I didn't know it, it just meant that I had to brace my core much more, and be able to have better body awareness. In this day and age, with the powerlifting belts all around, they're obviously cheaper to buy as well, and more accessible, and it's just become very popular. Because of this amount of support it provides, it's very easy for people to just sort of rely on it, and you see them not even bracing properly, not breathing into the belt properly, and they're just squatting. And so sometimes you see them collapse. Even with the deadlifts, it's the same thing that happens. So we try to stay away from powerlifting belts, at least for as long as possible, until closer to competition. How long before competition? Well, that depends, but that's another issue itself. So belts, try to stay away from. Wrist wraps are fine to use, and especially if you find that your wrists are hurting. There's a couple of things you can do if your wrists are hurting. Firstly, what you can do is switch to high bar squatting for some time if you're low bar squatting and your wrists are hurting. Usually there is no wrist pain with high bar squats across the board because the weight is just completely supported on your actual skeleton, on your frame, on your torso. It usually happens with low bar. There is a couple of things you can do. You can switch from thumb under to a thumb over grip. You can take your grip out wider. You can bring the bar up a little bit higher, or you can just switch to high bar squatting for some time until the wrist pain sort of subsides. If you're not using wrist wraps, then obviously that's the first thing you want to be doing. You want to try actually wearing wrist wraps. A mistake a lot of people make with wrist wraps, let me bring the wrist wrap. A lot of people, a common mistake with wrist wraps is when people put them on, they wrap it like that, and as you can see here, this is my wrist joint here, right? This wrist wrap right now is not doing anything. It's just a very expensive sweatband. What you want to do is you want to support this joint, and the way you support that joint is by making the wrist wrap cross the joint. So this black line here, that should be on the wrist joint. So see how it's much higher? And if this was a longer wrist wrap, I would even like overlap it like that and get even more coverage. Now this wrist is much more stable. So that's how you should be using your wrist wraps. If you're using wrist wraps now and you're still getting wrist pain with squats, try that first. Maybe you're not wrapping it quite right. If you re-wrap it and it works, then you're obviously onto something. Then you can try the other stuff. You can go thumbless, you can go wider grip, you can go higher bar. You can just switch to high bar for some time and see how that fixes the problem. All right. So we'll wrap up there for the first episode. We'll keep adding to it. If you guys got any comments, suggestions, anything else you want to find out about in regards to squatting, or anything else for that matter, just let us know in the comment section below and we'll address them as well.
Just continuing on from scapular activation exercises and for scapular building exercises. It's a very underrated muscle group.